Tonom is a detective who is scared that no girl will ever want him because he's invisible. However, when his blind coworker notices him and starts giving him attention, he falls for her and rizzes her up, so he can start a life with her. The story begins when Tonom arrives for work and is noticed by his blind subordinate, Yako. He asks her how she could tell it was him, and she says she can smell him, which makes Tonom start sniffing himself, thinking he stinks. However, Yako freaks out and tells him he doesn't stink, and she only sensed him because her senses are better than the average human. Tonom compliments her for this because he can't even detect his own scent, and he is grateful that someone else can sense him. To confirm this, he goes completely invisible and asks Yako to point out where he is. Yako listens closely to his footsteps and realizes he is at the door, and Tonom confirms this. Realizing she's the only one on the planet who can find him, his heart begins to race, so he asks her to join him for dinner that evening. Yako is shocked because she wasn't expecting to be asked out like that, but she agrees to join him. On the way, Tonom asks if she has any preferences or allergies, but she says she's cool with anything since she doesn't go out that often. Realizing she might not know any restaurants, Tonom offers to take her to a spot and begins leading her there. Along the way, Yako notices something off about him and assumes he doesn't have any restaurants in mind. She begins feeling bad because she's a blind workaholic who doesn't go out, but she snaps out of it when Tonom asks if she can sense something delicious. Yako admits she can and points to a restaurant. Tonom is glad because he's picked something that will suit her taste. Since it's his first time at this restaurant, Tonom goes with the house recommendation, and Yako likes it. She smiles as she remarks that it's her first time eating out with someone from work, but is stunned when she realizes she's actually on a date. She snaps out of it when Tonom gives her a piece of his meat to eat, but Tonom notices her mood and asks what's up. She says the outing feels like a date and she isn't sure what to think, so Tonom tells her it's a date. Seeing Yako's nervous face, Tonom walks up to her and places her hand on his heart so she can feel it racing and know that he gets nervous too. However, everyone in the restaurant starts looking at them like they're crazy. After they finish eating, Tonom asks for Yako's hand so he can lead her to the station, but she becomes shy because they'll look like a couple. Tonom tells her not to worry because YouTube can't demonetize this video even if he develops a plot with her on screen, but Yako tells him he doesn't need to go that far. She begins tweaking and opts to walk on her own using her stick, and Tonom realizes she's flustered by the last thing he said. Yako can already tell that he's grinning at her, which surprises him, though he promises never to hide his emotions from her. After that, he holds her hand and escorts her to the train station, but when she arrives home, she starts rolling around on her bed because her first date with him went well. The following day, Yako sits in the office thinking about the first time she met Tonom. Back then, he seemed so nice to her, and his voice was so soothing that she would wet the floor after hearing him. She also liked how elegantly he carried himself and wished they'd smashed, because no one would even notice, since his sausage was invisible. Currently, Yako dismisses the thought because she only went out with him once, but she wonders what he thinks of her. She also wonders what life is like for him because normal people can't see him, which makes her ask if he wishes she could see him. Tonom tells her he doesn't really care much about it because he is used to being invisible, but he is grateful that Yako is okay with feeling him instead. That afternoon, Yako bumps into Jirashi, her colleague, who saves her from falling to the ground. At the office, Yako bumps into Kikira, another colleague, who helps her to her table. While the others are working, Yako asks if they notice anything strange about her appearance, and Jirashi realizes she might be trying to impress someone. She compliments Yako's looks and claims she's a love coach in case she needs any advice on romance. Yako claims she's a good girl because she hasn't been getting enough vitamin D lately. All of a sudden, Tonom enters the office and asks to touch her hair, and Yako agrees, although the head pat makes her pickle start tingling. When Tonom is done, Jirashi is flustered because their boss is the guy Yako is simping for, so Yako turns red and dodges the conversation. After that, Yako joins Tonom to listen to clients, most of whom demand investigations into their cheating spouses and missing exes. The following day, Tonom heads out to follow up on a lead, and he turns fully invisible when the guy he is tailing turns back. As the guy walks away, Tonom remarks that life as an invisible man is great, but he eats those words the moment he runs into a kid who can't see him. In the meantime, Yako is in the office listening to an audiobook about how to make happy sounds in the bedroom. When Jirashi asks what she's listening to, she lies that it's a normal audiobook to avoid being called a plot addict. Jirashi finds the book cool but mentions that she can't really follow what's being said, which shocks Yako because Jirashi is a wolf. Jirashi explains she isn't great at hearing or sniffing stuff by default and can only do it when she's locked in. Yako says she knows because she's checked Jirashi's reports. She then asks Jirashi for help reading a receipt on her table and finds that Jirashi spent a lot of cash on McDonald's. Jirashi says she's on heat and that her appetite has gotten worse, so Yako smiles and tells her to get a man instead and stop spending company funds on food. Feeling embarrassed, Jirashi leaves, but not before showing Yako where her phone is. Later, Yako checks the time and realizes Tonome has been out for so long. A bit later, Tonome returns, but when Yako calls out to him, he ignores her, so Jirashi tells her no one's there. Kikira then notices blood stains on the floor and assumes Yako is hurt, but Yako denies being injured. Afterward, she figures the blood is from Tonome and heads to his office with a first aid kit to see what's up. When she arrives, Tonome scoffs because he can't fully hide himself whenever she's around, so he reveals that he ran into some trouble earlier. Before now, he had hosted a married goblin couple and proved that the husband was a serial cheat. The wife was pissed and threatened to air fry her husband's sacks for sleeping around, while the cheating goblin was upset that his wife sent a detective after him. When Tonome saw things getting out of control, he tried to calm them down but ended up getting hurt. Presently, Tonome narrates everything that happened to Yako, who feels bad for him, but Tonome tells her not to stress because he and his client are fine. He finds it weird that his blood ceases to be invisible when it leaves his body and reveals that his clients were shocked when they saw it. However, Yako is bothered because his injury looks deep, and he notices she's worried. While he dresses the wounds, he tells her the injuries aren't that bad and that it only looks worse because he bled more than expected. However, Yako is scared because if he bleeds too much, he might die, so she asks if there's anything she can do to help. Since she's persistent, Tonome tells her to help with the bandage, and then he reveals he snuck into the office so she wouldn't be worried about him. While he covers his wound, he mentions that he feels ticklish around the area and also reveals that he's naturally ticklish. When Yako asks if she can tickle him, Tonome refuses because it might lead to something else. After they are done, they leave the room and realize the other employees have closed for the day, so Tonome says he'll stay back and write a report. Yako feels bad because she's going home while Tonome will be working overtime, so she decides to order some supplies for him. She then suggests they take a break together when she's done with work, but Tonome decides to take the break now and complete his job later. At first, he makes her some tea to help her feel relaxed, and Yako enjoys it, saying that it tastes good. Deep down, she wants to go out on another date with Tonome, but is scared because she thinks the previous date was a one-time thing. She figures she could just ask him out herself and decides to shoot her shot, so Tonome smiles because he was just about to ask her to dinner. He says he found a place he wants to show her, so Yako agrees to pick a day for their next date. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you watched up to this point, let's confuse the fake anime watchers by commenting, "Sweet plot." Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know if you want episode 2.